So, hello again. Just a very quick video and an apology for taking so long to upload. I've been trying to sort of get my life back in order and organise all the technology again, but I think I've figured it all out and I can put a few more videos up soon. This is just a really quick one. I'll put a link to this website, which is my website, underneath this video in the description. And from there you can find this link and go to the store cupboard. Now, I'm making this video mainly because I recommend sort of multi-sensory phonics approaches, especially for younger children if they're struggling with the alphabet and letter names and the sounds that they make. So I've created this resource here, which I often recommend, and it says here, to purchase. I don't know how to do it to say that it's free, so it would ask for money. So what you can do is just copy this link here and go to that area, and hopefully the link still works. So this is another one of the technical issues that goes with all this stuff. Now, when you see it, it looks, it looks nice and colourful, but you've got to know what to do with it, I guess. And this is based on the Margaret Hickey approach, which is multisensory overlearning, and it's structured synthetic phonics building up on itself. So we're looking at, first of all, the letters are all in order that we should learn them. In terms of how common they are, according to Margaret Hickey anyway. You may have heard of other approaches that are very similar, things like Orton Gillingham. I think that's used as the basis of beat dyslexia and, toe by toe and other daily resources. But this just might suit your child a little bit better. So what we're doing is we're really working on one letter quite intensively for about 10, maybe even 20 minutes, getting out the Play-Doh and all sorts of stuff that I've talked about in other videos to really embed the feeling, the multisensory feeling and sight of that letter. Some people even introduce smells and things like that. That might be going a little hard on your workload. But the first activity here, we're going to take a pencil, and just like this mouse cursor is, we're going to move along. And as we go, keeping the pencil on the page, we're going to lasso all the I letters. So it's very important that we say I and then the letter name as we go around. Now, a lot of these are a bit confusing. We might make the odd mistake. Look at the difference. Describe the difference. Well, this one's is a capital I. It's a big letter I, like I am. This instead doesn't have that same pattern on the bottom, so we can identify that as a T, but we won't go too much into that. We're focusing on I. So they go along and say I, and you'll constantly have to remind them, and it'll probably annoy them a bit, but it's really important part of it, and then they'll get in the habit of it. So then the next bit is looking at the picture and saying it, and can we hear the sound in that word? So it's pretty much just a focused phonics thing, like they may have already done at school, but really one-to-one, really making sure that they're getting it all the time. This is where you can bring in speech therapy as well. If your child is, struggling to make the correct sound, we can even talk about where your tongue is. Now, there's skilled speech therapists out there, but they don't have a lot of them out there per capita, let's say. So, it can be helpful, I think, to, despite not having the training, just think about where your tongue is. Looking at what they're doing and enforcing it. Now with I, it's a vowel sound, so we're going to maybe put our hand on our throat, because on the vowel sounds we use our voice box, don't we? And the consonant sounds is all in the teeth and tongue. So we might just talk about it and try to correct them a little bit. I think we can all see what someone's doing wrong if they're sticking their tongue out or something like that. It's very hard, and it takes a lot of practice with some kids to develop the right speech sounds. But this is an opportunity for it, and while you're doing it, you're doing phonics. I'm a big believer in tying things together, and that includes, in a multi-sensory sense, what our mouth is doing, while we're making these sounds, and then seeing them and hearing them and applying them. So in this activity, going back to that, we've got the word igloo. Starts with I. Now, where is it? Is it at the start of that word? Or is it in the middle? Or is it at the end? And talk about the beginning, what that means. Make sure they know what beginning, middle and end means. If they're quite little, they might not have a secure grasp of it. So we say is the first sound you can hear. The first shape your mouth makes. And can you feel your voice box making the right at the start of the word igloo? It also does it at the end. It makes an oo, but that's a different vowel sound, isn't it? So, then we might get them to try and write it. Now here, we're not looking for a perfect version of igloo. We're developing phonics skills here. I'm going to talk about sight vocabulary a lot in this and probably other videos. But what we're looking at here is phonetic attempts. So plausible attempts would be things like I, G, L, or they may just put I, G, oo, and they might miss out the L sound, and we can gently correct them with that. But really we're trying to just praise where they're hearing that I and putting it in the right place. So it's the letter I as the focus. Is that in there in the right place? Remember, this is the very first session you're doing. So we're looking at that. And then we've got a pin. We're going to do the same thing. We might try and write it underneath, and then a stick. You can put your own pictures on this if you like, or draw a little picture of something else. It doesn't really matter. Now I've tried to build a sentence for each one. Obviously when you're only starting with I, it's quite hard to build a sentence just using that. I should probably have one that says I in it as well, because that's the other sound that the letter makes. And all the time we're building up not just the phonics sound but the letter name as well. Now there's all sorts of cards and extra resources that you can use to help develop this. This is just one of the tools you might use as part of a multisensory kind of session. And very much, if you want to look into that more, look at Beat Dyslexia, the Hickey approach, and how to build that multisensory lesson. Often these can go up to like 30, 45 minutes, but can be a bit much. But they're very, very varied lessons, and like I say, this is just a part of it. We're going to then try reading, looking for the I. It makes an I in all of these. We can give them a clue. We can go it, and just literally sounding out. It's a very phonics approach, this part. And then we're going to try writing it. You know, we can copy. We can practice making the I. I've also made some handwriting sheets that really focus on just reproducing the letter and making the sound. It builds up that link between the movement, what they see the pen creating on the page, and the sound coming out of their mouth and into their ears, obviously, as well. Now, while they're doing this, a capital I is going to be all the way up, sort of here. It's going to be a tall letter if they do the handwriting underneath. The T is another tall letter. So we're teaching them about how to make the shapes, and they can really just take their time here and produce a nice, 4-word sentence for you here. We've got a full stop as well. Start with that early on. It just says that's the end. It is. Now these are both small letters, so they're both going to fit underneath this green line. It's basically just a height guide. What you can do as well is you can even sort of use a highlighter over this to make spaces, so that you put a gap between highlighted spaces. So that they can see where to leave the spaces, and make them really big and exaggerated. Why not? I'd rather see a massive space between words than a very, very tiny one. So let's just go for that for now. To emphasize the different words, where they start, where they begin. We're talking about, with dyslexia, children who are quite able verbally, but then sort of something is amiss in the translation of that, either to or from the page. So that's kind of a summary of it. I said a short video. I have no idea how long this is already. We go then through other letters, and we're adding different letters in, trying to build up some of the most common letters first. Now you might think P isn't that common, but it's not just that. It's sort of how useful they are in terms of the order that they should be developed. There's a lot of thought gone into this, obviously. You may find that children are really secure on one letter and you just sort of put it to the side one day. But make sure they are really, really secure, with the letter name and the sound it makes. I don't think there's much more to say about these sheets. They're sort of designed to be done. I don't know how many pages there are. Let's try and figure out by scrolling this down. 26 it looks like. So there's at least one for each letter of the alphabet. And most of the time these make different sounds as well, don't they? Like this makes an and a U sound, and Jack jumped, there's in the mud, he is stuck, it's all sound there. But the letter name is U. And uniform, there's an example. Uniform, we'd say the letter name there. So we need to know the letter name as well as the sound, not just because it helps us to spell later on when we're trying to not use phonics for those words that don't fit the phonics system, but also it is usually one of the other sounds that the letter makes. It's not just or depending where you are in the country, but R as well. It can actually make an R sound when it's next to an A. So it's hard to sort of pick random examples out, but you'll see this as you go through that the letter name is kind of useful in a lot of these. Now Q always comes with a U. You never see it without it, so you can teach that as a solid handwriting pattern to do them together. You're not really going to see that letter by itself otherwise. It's just more of the same, really. much more of the same, but the sentences sort of build up and they incorporate the other letters that we're learning as we go along. So this should have some V's in it as well. The sentences are really random, by the way. I just made these up because there aren't examples given. It just sort of gives you the framework on how to do this. So the women can walk in. I have no idea. I was just trying to use all the letters and lots of the W's there. Ask mum to fix the flex. I have no idea. So a flex is like a cable, isn't it? It's, you know, some of them are a bit silly, and if you read them, they might get some kind of reward from figuring out what the sentence is. You could also make up your own using the words that you've just looked at and using their already worked out spellings. You know, then you're breaking the task down into, right, I've already know how to write that word, or a good enough version of it. Let's now, you know, put that into a sentence, use them like building blocks. Hope that helps to anyone who I've suggested these worksheets to. I know I've seen, you know, a lot of people have been accessing and downloading it, so hopefully you either know how to use these or not. It's just something I've made based on some rather drab resources that I've seen, and I thought I could improve a bit. Anyway, I'm going to do some more videos pretty soon. I hope everyone's okay out there. Let's try and keep anxiety down with everyone. I think that's the main thing we have to do this year, and always with students. That's really going to, you know, help people to do their best if we can just keep a lid on all the worry and things like that, because a lot of it is unnecessary. It's the nature of it. It's just our human mind trying to prepare for the worst, and it's not always going to happen. So take care, and hopefully I'll be less than a year or so with the next video.